She didn't leave because she stopped feeling. She left because something felt unsafe, unseen, or uncertain. And if you do this one thing wrong, she will never return. But if you do it right, she comes back. Not confused, not halfway, but fully, willingly, and emotionally invested. Stay with me till the end, because most people destroy their chances in the first 48 hours without even realizing it. When a woman pulls away, the instinct to chase is almost automatic. The silence feels heavy, the distance feels threatening, and your mind starts filling the gaps with fear. So you text more, you explain yourself again and again, you try to fix what you think went wrong, and without realizing it, you begin negotiating for attention. But chasing never communicates care or strength. It communicates anxiety. It subtly tells her that your emotional balance depends on her response, and that creates pressure rather than connection. The moment she senses that pressure, her nervous system tightens and emotional attraction quietly shuts down. Centering yourself is not about pretending you don't care. It's about regulating your emotions instead of outsourcing that regulation to her. A centered person remains grounded even in uncertainty. When you stop chasing, you're not withdrawing love, you're withdrawing chaos. This shift is crucial because attraction is not built on intensity, it is built on emotional safety. When you chase, you remove that safety by placing responsibility on her to calm you, reassure you, or decide your emotional state. That burden is heavy, and most women instinctively step away from it. Centering yourself means returning to your internal anchor. You focus on your routines, your health, your work, your purpose, and your social world, not as a distraction, but as a reminder that your life is full and stable. This stability is deeply attractive because it signals leadership at an emotional level. You are saying without words that you can handle discomfort without collapsing, that uncertainty does not make you reactive, and that silence does not make you lose control. This is the opposite of indifference. It is composure. When you center yourself, your communication naturally changes. You no longer send messages to get a response. You send messages because you genuinely have something to say. You no longer explain yourself repeatedly. You trust that clarity does not require overjustification. This calm confidence is felt, not heard. It changes how she perceives you. Instead of seeing someone trying to hold on, she sees someone who is secure enough to stand still. And standing still is powerful because it gives space for reflection, curiosity, and emotional recalibration. Chasing tries to force an outcome. Centering allows an outcome. The difference is subtle but profound. When you chase, you are trying to control her feelings. When you center, you are taking responsibility for your own. That responsibility creates a quiet strength that cannot be faked. It shows that you respect yourself enough not to beg for reassurance, and that you trust your value enough not to prove it. In that space, something shifts. The dynamic moves from imbalance to polarity, from pressure to pull, from fear to presence. Silence is one of the most misunderstood tools in human connection. When a woman pulls away, many people either fear silence or misuse it. They disappear to provoke a reaction, to make her feel guilty, or to regain control. That kind of silence is loud, manipulative, and emotionally aggressive. It doesn't heal anything. It creates tension and confirms her belief that emotional communication with you is unsafe. Healing silence, on the other hand, is calm, grounded, and intentional. It is not used to teach a lesson. It is used to restore emotional balance. When emotions are high, logic doesn't land. If she has distanced herself, her nervous system is likely overstimulated. She may feel overwhelmed, pressured, misunderstood, or emotionally tired. In that state, more conversation does not bring clarity. It creates noise. Healing silence gives her space to breathe without feeling chased or judged. It allows her emotional system to settle, which is the only state in which reflection can happen. Silence, when done correctly, communicates trust. Trust in her ability to process her feelings and trust in yourself not to force an outcome. This kind of silence is not passive. You are not waiting in emotional paralysis, staring at your phone, counting hours. You are actively regulating yourself. You continue your life with dignity and structure. You don't post indirectly to get her attention. You don't send just checking in messages disguised as care. And you don't punish her with coldness if she does reach out. Your silence is neutral, warm, and emotionally available without being intrusive. That neutrality is powerful because it removes emotional pressure from the dynamic. Punitive silence creates fear. Healing silence creates safety. When she senses that your absence is not a weapon, her defenses lower. She begins to feel what is missing instead of what is overwhelming. This is where curiosity replaces resistance. She may start replaying interactions, not to justify leaving, but to understand what she felt and why. Silence gives her the psychological room to miss you naturally, not because she's being deprived, but because the calm presence you offered is no longer immediately accessible. There is also self-respect embedded in healing silence. You are acknowledging that connection cannot be forced and that chasing clarity often destroys it. By stepping back without resentment, you show emotional maturity. You show that you don't need constant engagement to feel secure and that you can tolerate uncertainty without collapsing into anxiety. This is deeply regulating for the dynamic. Many women return not because of what was said, but because of how safe it felt to step away without being attacked, interrogated, or emotionally cornered. Silence becomes healing when it carries emotional steadiness instead of emotional absence. You are not disappearing from her life. You are removing pressure from the connection. In that space, she gets to feel her own emotions without interference. And when emotions are allowed to move freely, they often move back toward what feels calm, grounded, and familiar. One of the biggest misunderstandings in relationships is the belief that being constantly emotionally available creates closeness. In reality, too much emotional availability often creates instability. When a woman senses that you are always on standby, always ready to respond, always adjusting your emotions to match hers, it doesn't feel supportive. It feels overwhelming. Emotional unpredictability keeps her nervous system alert, never quite sure what version of you will show up. Over time, that alertness turns into exhaustion, and exhaustion is one of the fastest ways attraction fades. Emotional predictability is not about being boring or distant. It is about being steady. It means that your emotional state is consistent regardless of external fluctuations. Whether she is warm or cold, communicative or silent, you remain grounded. Your tone stays calm, your reactions stay measured, and your behavior stays aligned with your values. This consistency creates a sense of safety that emotional availability alone cannot provide. Safety is not built by intensity, it is built by reliability. When she knows what to expect from you emotionally, her system relaxes. Emotionally unpredictable people often confuse passion with volatility. Big emotional swings, dramatic conversations, and constant reassurance may feel like closeness at first, but they slowly erode trust. A woman begins to feel like she has to manage your emotions or walk carefully around them. Emotional predictability removes that burden. It tells her without words that you are capable of holding yourself together even when things are uncertain. That capability is deeply attractive because it signals maturity and leadership at an emotional level. Being emotionally predictable also means setting internal boundaries. You do not overshare your fears in moments of anxiety, and you do not dump unresolved emotions onto her expecting comfort. Instead, you process your emotions privately through reflection, discipline, or trusted support systems. When you do share, it is intentional and grounded, not impulsive or reactive. This creates depth without dependency. She experiences you as emotionally open, but not emotionally needy, present, but not consuming. Predictability allows her to feel free. When she knows that your emotional state does not hinge on her mood, she doesn't feel trapped by responsibility. That freedom paradoxically increases attraction. People move closer to what feels stable and away from what feels demanding. By being emotionally predictable, you remove the pressure to perform, reassure, or constantly engage. You become a calm reference point rather than an emotional variable. Emotional availability says, I'm here whenever you need. Emotional predictability says, I am solid no matter what. The second creates trust at a deeper level. It allows her to lean in without fear of being overwhelmed and to step back without fear of emotional retaliation. In that environment, attraction doesn't need to be forced. It grows naturally in the presence of calm, consistent emotional energy. When a woman creates distance, it is rarely because of a single moment. It is usually the result of a pattern that made her feel unseen, unheard, or emotionally unsafe over time. In those moments, the natural reaction is to defend yourself. You want to explain your intentions, clarify misunderstandings, and correct her perception of you. But defending does not create connection. It creates opposition. The moment you move into defense, you position her feelings as something to be argued with rather than understood, and that quietly deepens the emotional gap. Reflection is the opposite of defense. Reflection requires you to pause your need to be right and instead become curious about what she experienced. This does not mean you agree with every interpretation she has. It means you acknowledge that her emotional experience is valid because it was real to her. When you defend, you protect your ego. When you reflect, you protect the relationship dynamic. That shift in priority changes everything. A woman softens when she feels emotionally mirrored, not corrected. Defensiveness often sounds logical, but logic rarely lands in emotional moments. Explaining why you didn't mean to hurt her does not undo the fact that she felt hurt. Telling her she misunderstood you does not make her feel more understood. Reflection, however, communicates emotional intelligence. It sounds like awareness rather than justification. It allows her to feel that her internal world matters enough for you to sit with it instead of rushing to fix or dismiss it. That alone can lower emotional walls that have been building for a long time. Reflecting also requires honesty with yourself. You examine patterns without self-punishment or denial. You ask where you may have been inconsistent, dismissive, distracted, or emotionally unavailable. This is not about blame, it is about responsibility. When you take responsibility internally, your external energy changes. You become less reactive, less defensive, and more grounded. That internal shift is often felt by her even before any conversation happens. Defending keeps the past alive. Reflecting allows growth. When a woman senses that you are capable of self-observation, she feels safer engaging again because the dynamic no longer feels stagnant. Growth signals hope. It tells her that distance led to insight rather than resentment. Reflection also removes the need to convince. You no longer try to prove that you are a good person. You focus on becoming a more aware one. That awareness is far more compelling than any explanation. Reflection turns emotional pain into information rather than conflict. It transforms distance into data instead of rejection. By choosing reflection over defense, you shift the dynamic from opposition to understanding. You stop fighting her emotions and start understanding the message behind them. In that space, emotional reconnection becomes possible without pressure because she no longer feels like she has to protect her feelings from being invalidated. People do not miss intensity, constant communication, or emotional urgency. They miss how someone made them feel when their nervous system was calm. When a woman pulls away, it is often because the version of you she was interacting with no longer felt emotionally safe or steady. That doesn't mean you became a bad person. It means the dynamic shifted into pressure, inconsistency, or emotional noise. When you try to pull her back through effort alone, you reinforce the version of you that made her step away in the first place. Letting her miss you is not about disappearing or playing games. It is about returning to the version of yourself that felt grounded, composed, and emotionally regulated. The version of you that did not seek reassurance, did not over-explain, and did not react impulsively. That version created ease. It allowed her to relax into the connection rather than manage it. When you reconnect with that internal state, her memory of you begins to change because memory is emotional, not logical. Safety is built through consistency and calm presence. When you stop trying to be remembered and start being stable, absence does the work for you. In the quiet space you create, her emotional system gets the chance to contrast what felt overwhelming with what now feels missing. She doesn't miss words or messages. She misses the way interactions used to feel effortless. That contrast is powerful because it invites reflection without confrontation. This process requires restraint. You resist the urge to remind her of what you were. You don't send nostalgic messages or references to the past. You let your energy speak instead of your voice. The more you try to evoke emotion directly, the less room there is for genuine longing. Missing someone happens naturally when pressure is removed and safety is remembered. By becoming emotionally calm again, you allow her to associate you with peace rather than emotional demand. Letting her miss you also means accepting that you cannot control the timing or outcome. You focus on your own alignment rather than her response. This alignment is not performative. It is internal. You move through your life with structure, self-respect, and purpose. That internal shift subtly changes how you show up if and when contact resumes. Your tone is steadier. Your presence is less reactive. Your words carry less urgency. When a woman misses you in this way, it is not because she feels chased or guilted. It is because her nervous system remembers a version of you that felt emotionally safe to be around. That memory pulls her back more effectively than effort ever could. The fear of losing someone often becomes the very reason they leave. When every action is driven by the anxiety of abandonment, your energy shifts from presence to control. You monitor responses, you read into silence, you adjust yourself to prevent distance, and slowly the connection stops feeling free. A woman can sense when she is being held emotionally rather than chosen emotionally. That sensation creates pressure, and pressure suffocates attraction. Being willing to lose her does not mean you want to lose her. It means you stop organizing your identity, behavior, and emotional stability around the outcome. Willingness to lose is rooted in self-trust. You trust that you will be okay even if the relationship does not resume. That trust changes how you show up. You no longer negotiate your worth or tolerate emotional imbalance just to keep someone close. You stop chasing clarity at the expense of dignity. This is not emotional detachment in a cold sense. It is emotional sovereignty. You reclaim ownership of your inner world. When you are no longer afraid of the worst outcome, you stop reacting from fear and start acting from alignment. This shift is felt immediately. There is less urgency in your voice, less tension in your communication, and less need to prove yourself. You are no longer trying to secure reassurance or lock in a future. You are simply present. Presence without fear is powerful because it allows the other person to experience you without pressure. A woman feels the difference between someone who is afraid to lose her and someone who is confident enough to let her choose freely. Being willing to lose also means releasing expectations. You don't demand closure, constant updates, or emotional guarantees. You allow uncertainty without collapsing into anxiety. This tolerance for uncertainty is a sign of emotional maturity. It communicates that you are stable enough to handle discomfort and grounded enough not to manipulate outcomes. That groundedness often creates curiosity. When she realizes you are no longer pulling, persuading, or panicking, the dynamic changes. The absence of fear creates space for desire. This mindset also protects you. If she returns to someone whole, not someone depleted. If she doesn't, you have not abandoned yourself in the process. You remain intact. That integrity is what makes reconnection possible in a healthy way. Relationships built on fear of loss are fragile. Relationships built on choice are resilient. When you are willing to lose her, you stop trying to secure love and start embodying it from a place of self-respect and emotional stability.